Okay, everybody, hello. Just me today. Hi, it's Brian from the Peerless Gamer. We're going to start episode 16 of my campaign. I'm running solo with Ironsworn Starforged. And just to give you a little recap from the last episode, which I did live, I'm trying something a little different. I wanted to try something a little different this time. I'm hoping it will work. I'm actually recording in 4K resolution this time. What I'm hoping is, YouTube will be kind to me and downgrade everything accordingly. If you enjoy seeing me in 4K resolution, I'm not sure if I'll be able to stream in that, but I know that I can do at least 2K. Looking forward to just trying some new things as we get along. Also, thanks to all of the feedback I've gotten. I am investigating a virtual tabletop because, yes, my setup is still a bit on the janky side and is prone to errors. And automatic rollers are automatic rollers. Depending on RNGesus that I have at the time, it's going to, I'm going to get good rolls, I'm going to get really good rolls, and I'm going to wish that I had died and started the campaign over. So I appreciate everybody's feedback on that. I've seen several autoplay, actual play podcasts and shows like High Rollers and others that have used D&D Beyond, and sometimes they get multiple 20s and critical rolls in a row, and then they hit ones and can't hit the broadside of a barn with a sword. And so it is what it is. I tried in the earlier show setting up a camera, but I find that fiddly and unable to be reproducible in a more mobile setting. So I was trying to do something that wouldn't require me to get out a bunch of dice, even though I'd love to actually roll some regular dice. So anyway, our last episode was one of those episodes where things didn't go so well for me, unlike some of my earlier episodes where I couldn't not get a hit. This time it was, I couldn't get I couldn't get a miss. I couldn't get a hit this time. So we're not doing so well. James and Dr. Ozric and Slick are attempting to escape the Colossus on board the Wild Deliverance. Unfortunately, through a series of unfortunate events, James ended up not doing well convincing the dock master that we needed to do an engine start, so we needed a technician, Petty Officer Jones, to go with us back to the ship. We couldn't leave Petty Officer Jones to his own devices, and so we tried to subdue him. Unfortunately, Petty Officer Jones apparently went to the Chuck Norris School of Martial Arts, and not only did give James a good thrashing, but in the course of the battle or the attack, the combat, James had a very poorly timed hit on Slick that knocked Slick out. And so Slick has regained consciousness, and we are working to continue our escape from the Colossus. But as it stands, we've subdued Petty Officer Jones, which is one of the 5 things now, because we had to add a few complications from the original play. So if we go back here, we managed to gain limited access to the Colossus computer systems. Dr. Ozric had that kind of access. We're going to attempt to release the docking clamps now, but we've had to neutralize Petty Officer Jones, and hopefully with the limited amount of access that we have, are going to be able to disable the Colossus and escape successfully to go to Zinnia, which is the anomaly that is being orbited by Neoma Station. Neoma Station is orbiting Zinnia, which is what was appearing to be a black hole, but is something else, which we know from the AI that materialized at the beginning of the episode 14, I believe. So where we're at right now is James and them are in the process of, we've hacked the Colossus computers, we've got the docking clamps, we're going to release the ship. We've successfully powered up the ship because we were able to do the engine test with Petty Officer Jones. That may come back to haunt us once if Petty Officer Jones appears or doesn't appear to the harbor master or dock master. So at this point, James is nursing a wound or two himself. As you can tell, we ended up having to face the music a few times. We've taken some health hits. We've taken a spirit hit when we hit Slick. Also, one of our other consequences was we lost some supplies, fixing Slick's injuries and his own injuries, and we suffered a damage to a pipe on the ship that had to be repaired. So we've suffered some loss of supply in this case. And as you can tell, in the attempt to make it less worse than it was, we've drained our entire momentum. So we are lacking momentum right now. We need a win right now so that way we can get ourselves back up and running. So first roll of the day just to test out the system. Looking pretty good. So let's hope our continued success here on this. So yeah. So James has helped Slick up, is repairing, putting a bandage on Slick. Has had her checked out by the medical bots, and she's got a concussion, but it's not too bad. Hopefully she won't suffer any further detrimental effects from that in the short term while we make our escape, because we will need her and Dr. Ozric and Arlie and everybody to help us disable the Colossus and get off ship. So James is feeling really bad about having hurt Slick like that. That wasn't what he had hoped would happen. He was hoping that it would go a bit more swimmingly than that. And so James he makes sure that Slick was okay, and he heads back to the cockpit where Dr. Ozric is, and Zinnia and Arlie. Arlie is James's AI companion, and he asks everybody, okay, are we ready to go? Can we get what we need and get out of here? And Dr. Ozric says, I think we can simulate some things. I think we can make some things happen that will distract them. The emergency airlock release in the docking bay is a switch that is right outside the main hangar door there. Unfortunately, that will cause an explosive decompression of the bay. Somebody's going to have to go out there and do that if we can't hack the system and get the doors open. And at this point, I'm thinking, I want to think that James is like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna. We may just end up making a lot of noise and getting out of here. The ship does have some weapons, so James says maybe we'll just, blast our way out of here. Arlie's like, I wouldn't advise that if you want to make yourself a fugitive from the law or from corporate, from the corporate, organization here that's running this ship. Arlie's like, I'd like to remind you that, being wanted for felony or damage to a ship is detrimental to our own, aims and goals long term. James is like, yep, but, we need to get out of here. And I don't think that we're going to go to a good place if we let the Colossus take us back where we think they need to go. I think we need to get out of here, and hopefully we'll be able to, once we get to Zinnia, we'll be able to make a better plan. Maybe call some people, maybe figure out what we're going to do. Maybe let Yoma Station know so that they can make it known what was going to happen. And we just need to get out of here. But if we can do it without blowing things up or shooting the Colossus, then we'll give that a shot. So I think at this point James is ready to go. He says, Slick, are you ready back there? We'll get the docking clamps released. And Slick said, yeah, we can do that. What are we going to do with the Petty Officer Jones? And James says, well, I tied him up back there. We may have to take him with us. So we'll put him in one of the cargo containers for now, and hope that nothing bad happens to him. Slick doesn't have much to say about that. I think she's like, all right, boss, we'll do our best. So I think James will ask Arlie to go back, help monitor the situation in engineering just in case Slick does need something. Take over some of the automation that Slick doesn't need to do, or to monitor systems to self-repair or what have you, if it's possible. And so James is going to ask Dr. Ozric to release the docking clamps because he has some low-level access to the system. So let's see, we need to go, I think we need to assist, aid and allies. We're going to go to page 11. All right. Whoops. There, aid an ally. All right. So envision how we aid them. So I think Dr. Ozric is going to do his deal. He's going to, use the access that he has, and I think we're going to. I think we need to secure an advantage. I think that's the first thing we need to do. We're going to assess the situation, make plans, attempt to gain leverage. So we're going to. How do we want to do that? It's going to be, and what makes sense with James's abilities. I think we're gonna order Dr. Ozric to, hack the system and release the docking clamps. Yep, because I want to use heart. I want to give myself the most chance possible. So, Dr. Ozric, do what you can. Make it happen. Let's just I know you can do this, so go ahead and do what you need to do. All right, so we have a weak hit. All right, so we have a weak hit. We're going to take 2 momentum because we need all the momentum we can get at this point. I'm going to pop it up 2 momentum. And so Dr. Ozric, he's tapping on some keyboards, and he says, all of a sudden you hear clank, 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 clank. And he's like, wow, I can't believe that worked. All right, the docking clamps are open. So James starts piloting roll. He's going to start backing out. In this case, I'm assuming they've pulled in. They pulled them in instead of backing them in. So James starts backing out. Obviously, he wants to make sure that if the ship realizes this has happened, that they can't put the ship back into the docking clamps. So James makes a piloting roll. So he is. Let me see. What would I do in this case? Let's see. So we have an advantage. I think what's going to happen is there's about 10 seconds where James is backing up, and of course, beep beep beep. There might be something. He turns on the external cameras, and he sees a bunch of people in the docking bay. They're moving. You see them going, they're making faces, and you can you can't hear them, but you can see them making pantomime noises like, oh, the ship's moving. All of a sudden. You see the harbor master that James was talking to earlier come out, and you see him pulling a weapon, and he takes a couple shots at the ship. But a small arms fire is not going to damage a ship like that in that way. All of a sudden, you hear over the comms, Deliverance, what are you doing? Cut your engines. What are you doing? This isn't safe. Shut your engines off now, or we're going to be forced to fire on you, making some kind of threat. James realizes that it's now or never. So he's like, Dr. Ozric, I need you to open them bay doors now. Do what you can. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do something. And Dr. Ozric says, okay, so I think we still have the advantage here. So I'm going to... Would they have noticed by now that there was some kind of unauthorized transaction from Dr. Ozric or somewhere else? Knowing what I know about security, myself as an aside, metagaming, I would say the company, I would say the organization probably has some good security controls, some of them mostly AI controlled. So I would say that I'm going to say it's probably better than 50% chance. I would say probably 75% chance that they would know that there's an unauthorized, if you watch Star Trek, the motion picture, like 2009 version, they knew almost within a few seconds that there was a problem, that the docking bay clamps had been opened. So I would say that it's better, less than 75%. Okay, so they knew something was wrong. You see more security people coming in. You see some weep, weep, weep. You see the red lights in the docking bay go on. The alarms are going off. And you see more security personnel. You might actually see a couple of like worker drones potentially, we're starting to rise up because, normally they're carrying boxes or something. They might be trying to get up in front of the Wild Deliverance to block the way or dissuade James from, going forward or moving backwards. So let me see, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? James wants to get off the ship. So he's going to ask Dr. Ozric, whatever you were planning on doing to distract or dissuade them from doing something, you need to do it now. So in this case, I think we're going to gain ground. Let's see what gain ground is. You are in control, right? We're in control. We take action in a fight to reinforce your position and move towards an objective. Perfect. All right, we're in pursuit, fleeing, or maneuvering. Boldly charging into action, coming to aid of others, negotiating or commanding, okay? Gaining leverage with force, powering through, or making a threat. I would say misdirecting. I think we want to use shadow because we're wanting to do something. So Dr. Ozric has some access left. So we're gonna use some shadow, see what comes up. Cross fingers, y'all, cross fingers. That's what we needed right now. Thank you, RNGesus. Thank you, RNGesus. All right, so we have an 8 total, so that's a strong hit. So we have a strong hit. We choose 2, so we're gonna mark progress. All right, so we're gonna mark progress. I like that. Let's mark progress. We've gotten 2 of our 4 bits open, which is great. And I want to take 2 more momentum because I think we're going to need all the momentum we can get. So what you see and hear from Dr. Ozric, he's like, this may be the last thing we'd be able to do on the ship before they figure out it's me and take my access away. But what you see is the fire suppression system goes off. And James sees that and he's like, you turned on the sprinkler system? And he's like, just wait. And what you see is a bunch of foam. And he's like, that was all over the ship. Fire suppression systems, for some reason, went off. So because it was a strong hit, fire suppression systems went off all over the ship. All this foam is all over the place. It's causing havoc all over the ship, causing problems. It'd be similar if you ever look up AFFF in the Navy. The U.S. Navy uses something called AFFF for firefighting. It'd be very similar to that. And so this is causing mayhem all over the ship, computer systems and all sorts of stuff. So in this case, I'm going to, there we go. So we've got progress. Oh yeah, I need to mark, I also need to mark progress on here. So those were 2 of our progress bars, so that's great. And this is 2 because they responded to the threat. So during this part, when everything's going on, you hear in another part of the ship, so we're going to kind of move to kind of a side thing, kind of like a, you know, what you might see. You hear the captain of the Colossus making a radio mayday, and James hears this over the thing too. So when you send out a mayday, it's like general broadcast. It's blaring anybody in the sector, basically. Mayday, mayday. This is the Colossus. We've been sabotaged. We've, you know, suffered a catastrophic failure of our firefighting systems, and we're having issues navigating and fighting, you know, having issues navigating, you know, we're attempting to make repairs. So they've already generally broadcast that, you know, there has been sabotage. They may not have mentioned the ship at this time or who did it, but there's definitely what you might hear, James might hear, there might be a few seconds of delay before you hear something like, I don't know, what would be the name of a ship? Let me see. So in this case, we're going to have another ship, because I think we realized at one point that this wasn't the only ship in the area. We found that out during one of the little vignettes between Achilles and the officer, or the captain of the Colossus. It's the Butterfeld. Butterfeld, B-U-T-T-E-R-F-E-L-D. Is the Butterfeld a warship? Let's see, is the Butterfeld a warship? I'm going to say 50-50. If it's below, yes. If it's above, no. Okay, it's not a warship, so what is it? It would be I would say, what if the ship is doing its own research? Or it's a supply ship. Maybe it's a research ship. Maybe it's doing its own thing. Surveillance, maybe? What would a ship like that be doing? It could be a surveillance ship, it could be a supply ship, it could be a research ship. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so I'm going to do 1, 2, supply ship, 3, 4, a surveillance ship, 5, 6, research ship. And we're just going to use the die 6 this time. Research ship. Okay, so it is a research ship. It is, obviously this thing must be of note. Maybe they have people of their own right. So the Butterfeld is a research ship. Working research ship. That's interesting, because that could open up some other things as well. So research ship, it's probably, I think the most likely outcome razor would be, it's obviously researching itself. It's also researching the anomaly. And maybe the anomaly is, maybe they're close enough that they can join and help out and assist in what's going on. So you hear the Butterfeld respond. It's what it sounds to be a lady's voice. It says, "This is Butterfeld. Do you require assistance?" You know, maybe if there are other ships, they've been told to keep radio silence. Maybe, and the Butterfeld maybe didn't follow those orders. Maybe there's a reason for that. All right, so we're ratcheting up the tension, the drama, by having 2 of our 4 tension bars done. When number 4 happens, ideally what should happen is something, you more bad will occur, or like the big bad evil boss will show up, or something that will affect the crew that we'll have to work through. So, all right, so the Wild Deliverance is in the hangar bay still. It has gone through the docking clamps. It has disabled the Colossus, or it has affected the Colossus in a way that it may not be easy for the Colossus to pursue us. Now we just need to figure out how to escape. James is trying to figure out if there's a manual switch. What he might do is try to send a message to the computer. He might actually say, hey, if we sent like the right code or whatever to leave, like open the doors, would it open the doors potentially because there's a hazard on the ship? And Arlie says, Arlie would know the protocols on the ship. So Arlie would be able to say definitively yes or no if that's the case, given this is somewhat of a crisis situation. Maybe there's a reason for somebody to want to abandon ship or what have you. Maybe this is the same kind of alarm or something like that. So I would say it's 50-50, yes or no. So 50 below is yes. I'm going to say, Arlie says, no, this is not one of those scenarios where the ship would take action like that. Arlie says the doctor may have the ability to suggest that there's a hull breach or something like that, or you could communicate that there is a hull breach. It would depend on what kind of communications has occurred to the captain yet to, whether or not we need to get out of here or we can get out of here. So James is going to bluff. I think James is going to bluff. And so we still have control. I think we're going to roll wits. Coordinating plans, studying a situation, cleverly gaining leverage. I don't know if that's cleverly gaining leverage or not. Let's see. I'm gonna. What was the other one? Create an advantage. I think we want to continue creating advantages for ourselves, right? So where's the creating an advantage? It was under aid an ally. It was under secure an advantage. Sorry, secure an advantage. I think we want to secure an advantage here. Trickery. All right, so we're gonna roll shadow. And I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to say, hey, maybe James could say when the fire suppression systems went off, we were testing our engines and the docking clamps came undone. I don't know. There could be, that could be something, right? So we could say that. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, we're moving around in the ship here. That's awesome. That's really weird. That's knocked. That's really knocked. That's really weird. Not a fan of sometimes how this stuff lays. So I guess we have to take it where it lays. All right, so that's a strong hit. So we said, hey, this is the Wild Deliverance. We had some kind of malfunction here when the the fire suppression systems, something happened in the hangar bay. We're free floating around, and I don't think we've got attitude control yet. Can you open the bay doors and let, so we can potentially get out of here? We don't want to damage anything. And I think based on the fact that this is a strong hit, a very strong hit, because with our shadow and +6 is 8 total, so it's twice what the other is. You hear over the comms, Deliverance, this is Colossus control. Yeah, we're gonna open this up. We don't want any more damage. It's all kinds of shit going on. So you see the doors opening, or you hear a klaxon go off, because you know that's going to be a problem for the folks in the dock. Because maybe some of the malfunctions with the comms or something like that. Maybe we just got lucky. So I hear the klaxons, and James sees on his window, on his view screen, and on the cameras around the Wild Deliverance, people are scrambling. You see the bay doors closing. Where get behind this door if you don't want to be sucked out into space, kind of stuff. And it's somewhat difficult because there's foam all over the place. The fire suppression systems are still throwing, foam and AFFF and water and extinguisher, solvents or whatever it is they use to contain fires. And the klaxons go off, and then 5 seconds later you start seeing the bay doors open. And James is like, I cannot believe that worked. So the doors are opening. James is, he's like, well, I better make it look like something bad's happening here. So, he sees, he's going to handle, I think what he's going to do is he's going to handle the piloting kind of sloppily, right? He's going to make it look like, I don't know, fly casual, that kind of thing. He's going to make it look like that maybe there's some issues with the ship still. He's like, he calls back to Slick. He's like, hey, Slick, I need you to kill one of the engines. Make it look like we still maybe hadn't gotten everything back up and running if they turn their viewports or something on us, because he wants to maybe further create the ability to move away. Like if they think that they're weak, if they actually do go to pursue, that there's no issues. So he's trying to set up a potential ruse. Like he's formulating a plan, kind of like not securing an advantage. Or no, he's making preparations, right? So in this case, he's trying to help secure an advantage for further by, and since this was secure an advantage, I'll take 2 more momentum, which is A-okay with me. And by creating that advantage, creating this plan, and getting where we're at right now, we're going to add 1 to our next move. So we're going to be able to add 1 for not a progress move later on. So great. So we will continue on and make our way out. The Wild Deliverance will make its way out of the bay hangar into space. And so, but he's like, hey, let's keep the energy levels low. Let's keep one of the engines offline, or let's not look like we're 100% and we're trying to speed away. Well, so James, Slick, and Dr. Ozric have successfully escaped the Colossus, finding their way to Zinnia, which we hope will go well. I know a little bit about what's going on in the future, which you'll see in the next episode, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I hope we'll be surprised. And so that was episode 16 for The Peerless Gamer. I'm Brian Brake. I want y'all to take care of yourselves, because I'm fond of saying, you're the only you have. All right? Take care, y'all. Bye.